Today I have another Tuesday trivia for you. I have 10 films lined up. I'm going to give you the synopsis and you guess what the movie is. This week I didn't do, I don't think I did any super hard ones, but the difficulty does range from very easy to, you might have to think about it a little bit. So let's get into it. What's up, physical media and trivia fans? Welcome back to another Tuesday trivia. I am going to be reading synopses of 10 different movies from the Video Hound's Golden Movie Retriever. I'm going to omit or redact some of the identifying information. And if you see me on screen while I'm doing that, I'll do like air quotes. But I am also going to put these things up on the screen. It seems to be helpful for folks to read as well as listen, or maybe for an accessibility. I like to have the words up on the screen. But I will give you the synopsis, and you try to guess what the film is. If you don't guess it by then, I'm going to give you the year next, so you can place it in at least a decade, right? I'm going to give you the specific year. Then I'll give you the cast in reverse order of billing, and then I'll give you the director. And if you don't have it by then you missed out on that one, but I'm going to give you the answer after that. And then I'll give you a fun fact about each film. So the fun facts are back again. I only missed 1 week. I only had one fun fact in that week, but I did get a request to put the fun facts back in for each of the films. So I'm going to do that. So let's get right to it with movie number 1. So these are all genre films, mostly horror and sci-fi. But you might find some other kind of genre film in this very first one. So movie number 1, an acclaimed Western about a group of aging outlaws on their final rampage, realizing time is passing them by. Highly influential in dialogue, editing style, and lyrical slow motion photography of violence. The director's main claim to posterity. The main actors create especially memorable characters, arguably the greatest Western and one of the greatest American films of all times. Beware of shortened versions. After pre-release showing to the East Coast critics, producer Feldman cut key scenes without the director's knowledge or consent. So that's the synopsis. I left the producer Feldman in there. I didn't think that would really give it away. But obviously this one is a Western. So Westerns are one of the genre films that I like to collect and to buy and sell. The year for this film is 1969. The cast is Robert Ryan, Ernie Borgnine, and William Holden. And the director is Sam Peckinpah. So the director's claim to posterity is the slow motion violence. He is kind of well known for the violence in his films and his films being violent. The other most violent one, or more violent one that I can think of off the top of my head, is Straw Dogs, which is excellent. It's a great movie. So the fun fact I have for you about The Wild Bunch, which is the film, The Wild Bunch, is John Wayne had a big problem with this film. He stated in interviews that the movie was distasteful and that it could have been good without all the gore. At the time, he often criticized Hollywood films for being, in his opinion, morally bankrupt. It turns out his opinions are trash, as he was a hypocritical military service dodger who supported the House Un-American Committee's Activities Committee and the John Birch Society, which opposed the civil rights movement. So he was a big piece of garbage. I know that some people are big fans of John Wayne films. Hopefully that's fine. Hopefully you can separate the art from the artist and still enjoy those films. But as a person, he was a hypocrite, a reactionary, a piece of garbage. So if you wanted my opinion on John Wayne, there it is. Movie number 2. Ragtag ripoff in which This actor is a post-apocalyptic garbage picker who gives his girlfriend, blank, some robot remains he collected, ours is not to ask why, oblivious to the fact that the tidy android was a government-spawned population controller programmed to destroy warm bodies. Seems old habits die hard, and that spells danger. Danger, Will Robinson. Much violence excised to avoid an X rating. This one might be one of the harder ones. This is a cult classic, so a lot of people do know it. But I feel like the synopsis, I mean, it has some key points in there. It might be a little vague. The year is 1990. 1990. Cast is John Lynch, Dylan McDermott, and Stacey Travis. The director is Richard Stanley. So another piece of garbage. Richard Stanley turned out. I think he has some mental health problems, but he also has some domestic violence accusations. So maybe he's a piece of garbage. Maybe he's, he has poor mental health. So who knows? That film is Hardware. So I talked about that film on this channel. The theme this week is laser discs that I featured on this channel. I bought this laser disc. This is one of my grails. I like the movie. It's wacky and weird and has, some cool cameos in it. We have Gwar, Lemmy from Motorhead. Iggy Pop does a voice on the radio. It's weird punk rock. It feels like DIY. It's guerrilla filmmaking feel to a cool sci-fi futuristic story. The fun fact I have for you is it is often claimed that the film was inspired by or even a spin-off of the cult comic 2000 AD. But Stanley has stated in interviews that he was inspired by Soylent Green and its source book Make Room, Make Room, as well as the Roger Zelazny story, Damnation Alley, an inspiration for Judge Dredd from 2000 AD. So Stanley claims that his inspirations predate 2000 AD and even shares one with the Zelazny story. Movie number 3. In the dehumanized world of the future, people live in underground cities run by computer, are force-fed drugs to keep them passive, and no longer have names, just letter-number combinations. Emotion is also outlawed, and when the computer-matched couple, blank, discover love, they must battle the computer system to escape. This one might be one of the tougher ones, but yeah, I think this one's tough. It is another cult classic. I featured the Laserdisc on the channel. The year is 1971. 1971. The cast is Donald Pleasance, Maggie McComey, and Robert Duvall. The director is George Lucas. George Lucas, director of several genre faves and creator of Star Wars. The fun fact, the film is THX 1138 or THX 1138. The fun fact that I have for you is most know the film is an expansion on, well, I say most. Most fans of the film, I should have said, know that it is an expansion on Lucas's student film of the same name. But it is lesser known that the concept is not Lucas's. It was adapted from a story by his fellow University of Southern California student, Matthew Robbins, who went on to have a solid movie career himself. He has directed some classics and he co-wrote the screenplay for Crimson Peak. I pointed that one out specifically because I'm a horror fan, so that's Guillermo del Toro's kind of gothic horror, and he did the Billie Jean movie. He did Batteries Not Included, which is sci-fi. That's a good one. So moving on to movie 4, we have a fine sword and sorcery tale featuring brutality, excellent production values, and a rousing score. The main character's parents are killed and he is enslaved, but hardship makes him strong, so when he is set free, he can avenge their murder and retrieve the sword bequeathed him by his father. This actor is great as the Queen of Thieves, and the top billed actor maintains an admirable sense of humor throughout. The third actor is dandy, as always, this time as a bad guy. This one is also a little bit vague, though the film is very well known, especially for its decade. The year is 1982. And the cast is Sandal Bergman, who played the Queen of Thieves, James Earl Jones, who played the bad guy, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who played the main character. The director is John Milius, and that titular main character is Conan the Barbarian. So the film is Conan the Barbarian. The fun fact that I have for you about Conan is one of Conan's most famous quotes was adapted from a Genghis Khan line in the biography The Emperor of All Men. The actual line in the book is, "To crush your enemies, to see them fall at your feet, to take their horses and goods, and hear the lamentation of their women, that is best." So that famous quote from Conan is from an autobiography, not an autobiography, a biography of Genghis Khan. And the quote is almost one-to-one. It's very, very similar. Movie 5. Picking up from a 1967 blank episode called Space Seed, the main character and the crew of blank must battle blank, an old foe out for revenge. Warm and comradely, in the nostalgic mode of its successors, it introduced the main character's former lover, an unknown son to the series plot, as well as another character's death, which led to the next sequel. So there's a lot of redacted and a lot of blanks in that one, but that's how they wrote it. I wanted to include this film because I talked about it on, and featured it on the channel on Laserdisc. The year is 1982. 1982. You can see why this was billed in this order. Remember, I'm going to read the cast in reverse order, but I think the first one is going to give it away. So the cast is Ricardo Montalban. I think that might give it away. Leonard Nimoy. If Ricardo didn't, Leonard probably does. And William Shatner, finally. So it's probably kind of obvious at least what the main title of the film is, if not the subtitle. The director is Nicholas Meyer, or maybe Mayer, Nicholas Meyer. That film is Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. The Wrath of Khan. So it was adapted from a Star Trek episode, which I didn't know before I read it in Video Hound's Golden Movie Retriever. The fun fact I have for you for Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan is the film features the first fully CGI sequence in a studio feature. It has been dubbed the Genesis sequence or the Genesis effect, depending on where you're reading this. And it was created by the Lucasfilm Computer Graphics Division. Lucasfilm, you might recognize that from Star Wars and all the stuff that George Lucas's company has worked on. So the Lucasfilm Computer Graphics Division was purchased by Steve Jobs just a few years later and renamed Pixar. That's cool. It's an interesting bit of trivia that I found when researching this film. Next up, we have movie 6. Mind-bending sci-fi movie set in the 21st century. Construction worker Blank dreams every night about the colonization of Mars, so he decides to visit a travel service that specializes in implanting vacation memories into its clients' brains and buy a memory trip to the planet. Only during the implant, he discovers his memories have been artificially altered and he must find out just what's real and what's not. Intriguing plot and spectacular special effects, laced with graphic violence. This movie also came out in 1990, as well as Hardware. The cast is Sharon Stone, Rachel Ticotin, and Arnold Schwarzenegger again. Another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. The director of this one is Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven has directed a lot of cult classics. I've talked about that on the channel before. Starship Troopers, RoboCop. RoboCop is by far my favorite of his. Some people love Showgirls. I couldn't do Showgirls. The film is Total Recall. This is another great Paul Verhoeven movie. Total Recall from the 80s, or from 1990. It feels like an 80s film. Fun fact I have for you is body horror maven David Cronenberg was originally set to write and direct, and even submitted about a dozen drafts to the studio. They were all rejected before he left the project due to creative differences. So they wanted, reportedly wanted more of a Indiana Jones adventure type film. That's not what they ended up with Paul Verhoeven, but I can see where David Cronenberg's vision might have been a little bit darker. I would love to see it, or maybe a documentary about David Cronenberg's Total Recall. We've been getting documentaries, I think, since Jodorowsky's Dune and George Romero's Resident Evil about what could have been. I would like to see one about this one. Movie 7. I'm going to censor this synopsis a tiny bit. Remember, I want to keep it PG-13 and I don't want to use gendered epithets on here. So, The Bee is Back. You can guess what the B stands for. The Bee is Back, some 50 years later. Popular sequel to the original amounts to non-stop ravaging combat in space. Contact with a colony on another planet has mysteriously stopped. Fresh from deep space sleep, the main character and a slew of pulsar-equipped Marines return to confront the mother alien at her nest, which is also inhabited by a whole bunch of the nasty critters spewing for a fight. Something's gotta give, and the Oscar-winning special effects are especially inventive and messy in the alien demise department. Dimension, acting biz talk, is given to our hero, Blank, as she discovers maternal instincts lurking within her spacesuit while looking after a young girl, the lone survivor of the colony. Tension-filled gore blaster. I love that tension-filled gore blaster. It seems like such a B movie description, and this one, you know, it had a big budget. It was very well received. It did well at the box office. The year is 1986. 1986. The cast is Lance Henriksen, Michael Biehn, and our star, Sigourney Weaver. That probably gives it away. I expected this one to be one of the easier ones if you didn't get it by the time it said alien in the description. But the director is James Cameron. And the movie is Aliens. So the 50 years later might have thrown you off a little bit, but in the timeline of Aliens, I guess that is 50 years later, or you know, approximately, according to VideoHound's Golden Movie Retriever. I don't remember what exactly it is on the timeline, but I know it is quite a bit later when Sigourney Weaver is unfrozen from stasis. So Aliens, fun fact, Lance Henriksen, Jeanette Goldstein, and Bill Paxton are all regulars in James Cameron's movies. They're all in Aliens. Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen are also in Terminator. Jeanette Goldstein is in Terminator 2 and in Titanic. All three were also in the superb cult classic vampire movie Near Dark. Criminally underseen, Near Dark. Hard to find on physical media, harder to find on physical media. But it wasn't just a coincidence that those three were in James Cameron's films and in Aliens in particular and in Near Dark. The director of Near Dark, Catherine Bigelow, was looking to cast a tight-knit group to portray the vampire family that she was casting, and Cameron suggested his Aliens cast as they had been working as a tight-knit group on his film just before. If you know any Hollywood gossip or lore, Catherine Bigelow and James Cameron ended up starting a relationship and then getting married shortly after this. So they were friends. He suggested, hey, I have this group, tight-knit crew that you could use for your vampire movie. Apparently Michael Biehn was offered a role in Near Dark, but turned it down for whatever reasons. Movie 8. In the 23rd century, a hedonistic society exists in a huge bubble, and people are only allowed to live to the age of 30. Intriguing concepts and great futuristic sets prevail here, based on the novel by William Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. So this is a very short synopsis. I left the based on the novel. I didn't think that would give it away necessarily unless you're a big sci-fi book nerd, which is awesome and great. So if that gave it to you and you know the answer, good on you. If you need more clues, then I'm about to tell you what year it was made or released. 1976. The year is 1976. The cast is Richard Jordan, Jenny Agutter, and Michael York. I'm going to give you a little bonus cast member. Farrah Fawcett is also in it. Star of the 80s poster that every teen boy had on his wall. Or most teen boys. I wasn't a teenager in the 80s, so I didn't make that cutoff. The director is Michael Anderson Sr. Michael Anderson Sr. And that film is Logan's Run. Logan's Run, which I featured on this channel. Showed the Laserdisc. The fun fact I have for you is the production budget was one of the highest of its time, with elaborate sets and props that were created to represent the domed city of the future. But not everything was built from scratch. The mall-like city was actually the ultra-modern Dallas Market Center in Texas. This was a cost-cutting measure that meshed seamlessly with the futuristic production design. That's kind of cool. I didn't know it was shot there. Next we have movie 9. Movie 9. The director counted on his directorial stature and broke all the rules in this story of violent murder, transvestitism, and insanity. Based on the novelization of an actual murder, this actress plays a fleeing thief who stops at the secluded blank where she meets her death in a now classic shower scene. Shot on a limited budget in little more than a month, this film changed the Hollywood horror film forever. I left the shower scene part in, even though that probably is identifying and gave it away, but it's not a name. It's not one of the iconic. Well, it is iconic, but not just. Anyway, I left it in. If it gave you a clue and you know the answer from that, great. If not, here's some more. The year is 1960. 1960. The cast is Vera Miles, Janet Leigh, and Anthony Perkins. And the director is Alfred Hitchcock. So that probably gives it to you. I intended for this one to be one of the more easy ones because the film is Psycho, and it is highly regarded, and most people, I think, if you're a genre fan at all, have seen Psycho, or at least know of it and know the plot. So a fun fact I have for you for Psycho is that it is often credited as being the first studio film to show a toilet on screen, or a variation on this is that is the first film to show a toilet flushing. Both are incorrect, but it may be the first American film to show a toilet, flushing or not, after the Hays Code prohibited them from being shown on screen, on camera. So I've heard that, I mean, probably since I was a teenager, and somebody told me, oh, you know, like this is the first movie to show a toilet. And I always thought, that's kind of weird, 1960, you know. But apparently the Hays Code, which came about in 1934 and went through just the early 60s, had kind of a stranglehold on large-scale production and studio films, you know, mainstream films. And it was self-censorship by the industry, the film industry. And for whatever reason, they didn't want you to see a turlet. So that's is what it is. And Alfred Hitchcock, they apparently tried to censor that scene in particular and tell him to take it out, and he said no. And he was a big enough heavy hitter that I guess he got away with it. Movie 10. Daredevil archaeologist blank is back. This time he's on the trail of the legendary Ankara Stone and a ruthless cult that has enslaved hundreds of children. More gore and violence than the original, this actress's whining character is an irritant, lacking the fresh quality that another actress added to the original. Enough action for 10 movies, special effects galore, and the usual booming blank score make it a cinematic roller coaster ride, but with less regard for plot and pacing than the original. Though second in the series, it's actually a prequel. I didn't know that. I didn't remember that this film was a prequel, even though it was released second. But it makes sense now that I read that. Like, oh yeah. The year is 1984. 1984. The cast is, I hope I'm saying this right. If not, I'm sorry. Ki Hui Kwan, Kate Capshaw, and Harrison Ford. The director is Steven Spielberg. I intended this one to be one of the easier ones. I mean, it's a Steven Spielberg film from the 80s, so it's pretty well known, I would say. The film is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I thought with the, adventurous archaeologist right at the top, you'd think Indiana Jones, but then you might have to, pay attention to the synopsis to figure out which of those it is. The fun fact I have for you is after the film was released with a PG rating, many critics and viewers complained about the level of violence and the dark subject matter of the film. This happened with the Spielberg-produced Gremlins as well. Because of this criticism, Spielberg suggested that the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, which is now just the MPA, Motion Picture Association, create a new rating, PG-13. They did so just a few months after this film hit theaters. So that is it. That's all 10 films. Hopefully you got at least a few of them. If you got more than 7, you're an ace. If you got them all, bravo. I'm very impressed with you. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching this far. If you want to like and subscribe, I would appreciate it. But in the meantime, you'll see me the next time I post. Thanks.